Quick warning before we get into this video, I am a lifelong USC fan, so I'm gonna try and be as unbiased as I can. Just bear with me. USC vs Utah, what did we learn from Saturday's game? We learned that I was right when I said that USC's defense will be the reason that they will never be able to take that step up and be an elite team in college football. This had to be one of the easiest tough wins that Utah will ever get as a program. So real quick before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, be sure to leave this video a like and also hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 300,000 subscribers, and comment down below what are your guys' thoughts on the USC vs Utah game. So what do I mean when I say this is one of the easiest tough wins that Utah has ever had as a program? What I mean by that is that, yes, on the defensive side of the ball, Utah had their hands full when trying to stop USC's offense. They were doing everything that they possibly could, but between Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley was putting together an absolute masterclass of offensive play calling, getting his guys open, moving the ball effortlessly. There was only a couple of times in the game, which we'll get into, where USC's offense, I wouldn't even call it stalled. They just weren't calling the best plays for the occasion. But overall, between Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley, they had Utah's defense's hands full. But when it came to the offensive side of the ball, they had the easiest cakewalk that they will ever see. The easiest time that any Utah team has ever had on offense scoring the ball. Utah's offense was a pure mismatch for USC. USC's secondary plays the best when they're able to play in man. However, Utah has extremely big receivers. Between Devon Vele, who had 5 catches for 62 yards and a touchdown, and Dalton Kincaid, who had 16 receptions for 243 yards and a touchdown. Those two guys, absolute big body wide receiver and tight end combo. USC simply could not stop them. They couldn't play man against Utah's bigger receivers, and so they were forced to play zone. And they just played absolutely horrendous zone. All night long, Utah not a single time did they ever make a defensive switch up to try and play a little bit tighter of zone. It's okay to play zone, but they were just letting Cameron Rising absolutely pick them apart underneath. You would think that a tight end who has 16 receptions for 234 yards, you think at some point you would try and stop, you try and stop him. You try and play a little bit more blanket coverage, maybe double team him. I don't know. You would try something, but no, we just played the absolute softest zone that we could possibly play the entire game. There was only maybe 4 catches that were like actual contested catches that Utah had to make. Everything else, they were wide open. I mean, to me, it is absolutely appalling that USC has a 6'6" linebacker in Eric Gentry, and we did not just single cover him over Dalton Kincaid from the second quarter on. The fact that we had a big body linebacker who could bump and run him with him at the line and could also run in space, and we were just like, nah, we're just gonna kind of just let him play middle linebacker the entire game. This had to be one of the worst defensive play called games I've ever seen in my life. Yes, Utah was just a great mismatch for USC when it came to offensive and defensive personnel. Utah has very big wide receivers, there's big receiving targets. USC is kind of small in the secondary. But the fact that we were not able to make any defensive adjustments the entire game, it wasn't like Utah was just running these amazing plays. It wasn't like their play calling was just fantastic. It was literally just run your route and you'll be wide open because USC's gonna be playing 15 yards back just trying to keep everything underneath. It was an absolute terrible play called game on the defensive side of the ball for USC. But speaking of that man, Dalton Kincaid, I gotta give props where I see props. That dude, him and Michael Mayer at Notre Dame are the 2 best tight ends in the entire country. Dalton Kincaid was absolutely cooking USC. I mean, cooking. I mean, that one catch that he had on the sideline where he had the little toe tap, the guy is nice. Hey, you gotta call a spade when you see it. Dalton Kincaid is that guy. He was absolutely going crazy in that game. Now, the last thing I want to touch on before I break down each team and their strengths and weaknesses in this game, because of the fact that this game came to a 1 touchdown game, not even a 1 touchdown game, a literal 1-point game. That is not a roughing the passer. That roughing the passer call in the first quarter that would have had Utah down 14-0 and eventually would have been down 21-0 going into the second quarter. That was a absolutely horrendous call, and that allowed Utah to get back into the game. I'm sorry. college football, just football in general, needs to figure out what's going on with these roughing the passer calls, because it's literally a joke at this point. Instead of USC being able to jump out to a huge 21-0 lead, because Utah wasn't able to stop USC, especially in the first half. USC was absolutely cooking Utah's defense the entire game, but especially the first half. To go up 21-0 going into the second, well, it would have been, that touchdown would have been in the second quarter, the third touchdown would have been in the second quarter. But the fact that it's, instead of it being 21-0, it's 21-7, it's a major difference, especially when you see that the game ends in a 1-point score. Absolutely horrendous call. That is just the most BS call that I've seen. There's just been the past couple of weeks as football fans, we should all have seen, and it's not even the fact of, oh, it just happened to your team, stop being so mad about it. It's just the flat out inconsistency and just the cherry picking that these refs are doing when they want to call and not call roughing the passer call. Just make up your mind. Just literally just make up your mind. What is and what isn't a roughing the passer call? Us as football fans, we don't care either way. Just stay consistent to something. But now that we got that out of the way with, let's actually get into the breakdown of both of these teams. And we're starting with Utah. Utah played a phenomenal game against USC on both sides of the ball, mainly on the offense, but in the back half of the game, Utah did a great job of picking their points when they were able to get pressure on Caleb Williams. It's funny because the breakdown that I gave for the Tennessee and Alabama game is almost identical to the breakdown I'm going to be giving for this USC versus Utah game. Utah should have gotten a lot more sacks and a lot more tackles for loss than they were able to, but Caleb Williams, if it's not Bryce Young, Caleb Williams is the best scrambler in all of college football. The things that he can do to evade the pressure behind the backfield and then be able to still get the ball accurately downfield, to me, it's only him and Bryce Young that are in the same category. Everybody else is in a tier below. Those two guys can flat out make defenders miss in the backfield and make explosive off-schedule plays for their offense. Now, while Utah did have their hands full when it came to USC on defense, they did do a good job of at least not beating themselves. Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams had to out-scheme Utah's defense. It wasn't like Utah was just giving up these big chunk plays. It wasn't like they were out of position. Literally, if it wasn't just Caleb Williams making something amazing happen, for the most part, Utah was where they needed to be, and they were doing a good job of at least making USC have to earn it. Obviously, USC is able to move the ball extremely easily on the offensive side of the ball. We have one of the best, if not the best, offenses in the entire country. So you have that to deal with. But especially in the back half of the game, in the plays and the downs that mattered, Utah did a great job of getting pressure on Caleb Williams. Especially in the beginning, they thought that they could just send 4 and still get to Caleb Williams. Once they realized that they couldn't, they picked and chose great spots to send 5, to send 6, to just give a different look to Caleb Williams, to have to force him to make a play. Caleb Williams can make the plays, but at least they forced him to make a play. But then on the offensive side of the ball, when it came to Utah, I want to give Utah a lot of credit. I want to give Cameron Rising a lot of credit for how he played, but I simply can't. The only person who I can really give a bunch of credit to is Dalton Kincaid, because he absolutely just cooked USC's defense. This isn't even me being a biased USC fan. USC's defense played so piss poor. I genuinely believe you could have taken a junior in high school, put him at quarterback, and would have been able to make the throws against USC's defense. USC played the softest zone coverage the entire game. There was literally no defensive changeups at all. It was just, oh, okay, we're just going to let him just gouge us for 7, 8, 9-yard throws underneath the entire game. And then every now and again, Dalton Kincaid's going to just break one off for a nice big gain, or he's going to make one guy miss. Or Cameron Rising's going to just take the ball for easy, very, very easy scrambles. USC absolutely beat themselves because USC has done the same thing that they've never been able to do. They can't play defense. They simply cannot play defense. USC was doing a great job of getting pressure on Cameron Rising in the pass rush, but when it came to the running game, Utah was consistently getting pushback on USC's defensive line. Literally, every single time that Utah decided to run the ball, Utah's line was getting 1 to 2 yards of pushback every single play. It was absolutely terrible. And then in the moments where he needed to, he was able to make the throws because the guys were wide open. Because USC's either mishanding off a guy so a guy's running wide open, or they're playing the softest zone ever. And so all you got to do is just, oh, okay, there's no one within 5 yards of him. Maybe I should throw it to him. I give credit for Utah making the plays that they did make on offense, because obviously you still got to make the plays regardless of how easy the defense is. But I can't give them too much stock. The only person I'm giving a lot of credit to is Dalton Kincaid, because he absolutely did the most with what he got. But USC just played absolutely piss poor, horrendous. I want to use other more explicit words, but just god-awful defense. And now breaking down USC, I don't want to be a broken record. USC played absolutely trash defense. I don't want to talk about anything about USC's defense. It was absolutely piss poor. I just don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about their offense, which has always been the shining light of USC. USC continuously shows, and Caleb Williams is continuously showing, that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. I want to say he's the best quarterback in the entire country, but with CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Hendon Hooker in that mix, I can't just definitively call him the best quarterback in the country. But Caleb Williams is able to do things that very few, and I mean a very, very few amount of quarterbacks can do. Caleb Williams has to be one of, if not the best scramblers in the entire country. He can extend plays, he can make that off-schedule throw, and he is extremely accurate while they're rolling away. But more importantly, when he has to step back up into the pocket and really launch the ball, he is an absolute artist when it comes to being able to make a throw off schedule, off platform, or stepping back up into the pocket. Mario Williams and Jordan Addison put together an absolute masterclass at wide receiver. Jordan Addison might be one of the best deep route runners in all of college football. That deep 15-yard in, he absolutely runs that to perfection. Absolutely runs it to perfection. And then Mario Williams is one of the best X factors as an offensive weapon in college football. When you just can get the ball in his hands, good things are going to happen. I'm going to get to Mario Williams on a little bit later, but overall, USC, Travis Dye was absolutely cooking in the backfield. USC has no weaknesses on the offensive side of the ball. They were doing a great job of giving Caleb Williams some time. When they weren't able to give Caleb Williams time, Caleb Williams could just make a play on his own. He's good running the ball. He's good staying behind the pocket and finding the open guy. Lincoln Riley did a phenomenal job of just putting USC in great positions to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. The only downside that I would say that USC had was a little bit in the third quarter, where both teams were kind of slowing down just a little bit. USC kind of got away from their short, quick passes. I feel like USC's offense is most dangerous when they're running the ball consistently, getting the short, quick passes out to the perimeter, to their playmakers, and then you build the deep passes off of that. But USC kind of got a little trigger happy. They were letting Caleb Williams stay in the pocket a little bit longer, and that's when Utah was able to get a little bit more pressure on Caleb Williams. But once we were kind of getting away from those quick passes, just quick slants, quick just throwouts to the boundary, just getting the ball in playmakers' hands, that's where USC's offense slowed down a little bit. I'm not going to call it stalling out, because USC scored in literally every single quarter. That was just the only gripe I would have with USC's offense is we got away a little bit from the quick passes, and that's where our offense slowed down a little bit. But other than that, USC just has a ridiculously overpowered offense. And the last thing that I want to say about USC is you cannot expect to win big time games when you keep on shooting yourself in the foot. 12 penalties for 93 yards. You should never even be in a position to win the game when you have that many penalties and that many penalty yards, especially when I get it. Utah fans, I give y'all credit. Y'all had that place absolutely rocking. That is where you need to be the most disciplined. The fact that on our final drive, the last chance that we had to even get into field goal position, we had 2 false start penalties. Those are absolute drive killers. The fact that we were having offensive holding calls, just the amount of false starts that we had was just unacceptable. I know that it's a loud crowd, but that you're in college football. You're playing big time Power 5 college football. You have to get used to just playing in loud crowds. It's just something that you just can't. Those are the little details that USC fails to have year in and year out. We have this overpowered offense and everything's all good, but it's the discipline. Every single year, it's always the discipline. It's always the little things that prevent USC from taking that next step into really being one of the best college football teams in all the nation. It's just the small things. Once we can wrinkle out those things, once we're more disciplined on defense, we're not missing assignments and handing people off. Like literally, anytime that Utah had any pre or post snap movement, USC was absolutely lost. We didn't know who we were handing off our assignments to. We were leaving guys wide open, and then we were just playing really soft defense. Literally on the defensive side of the ball, it's a mix between just terrible play calling and USC just not the players themselves just not making the right decisions. Like, it was just hard to watch on the defensive side of the ball. And then to see how emotional Caleb Williams was after the game, I would be too. He literally did all that he could to give USC a chance of winning, and USC's defense just flat out let them down. It wasn't like Utah was just absolutely just this masterclass of play calling. It literally was just USC's defense just flat out let the rest of the team down. So, hey, it's the little things will consistently, they'll catch up to you one day. You can't get away with it forever. 12 penalties for 93 yards, it's not going to get it done. So final thoughts, Utah is one of the more dark horse teams that nobody's going to really want to be playing at the end of the year. They still have a chance to be in the Pac-12 championship game. So if you're playing Utah in the back half of the season, they're going to be a very scary team to have to go up against. So everybody keep an eye out on Utah, which we all knew. And for USC, season's not over. It's over for trying to make it to the playoffs, but it's not over yet. We're probably going to fall to 15, 16, somewhere around there. Win out, find a way to get back into the Pac-12 championship game. If we win out, we'll probably end up somewhere around the 10 seed in the college football rankings, get a solid bowl game, and just call it a season. But this one just hurts. This one just flat out hurts because of just every single year, it's always USC's defense that lets them down. But I want to hear from y'all. Comment down below. What were you guys' thoughts on the USC versus Utah game? Be sure to leave this video a like and also hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 300,000 subscribers. And with that being said, I love and appreciate all y'all. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Ciao.